All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I want to welcome you to our first LinkedIn Live event. I'm Michael Jansen, our Chief Research Officer, and I'm here today with Parul Jain. I'm coming from Dallas, Texas, or actually McKinney, Texas, just north of Dallas. And Parul, you're coming and introduce yourself a little bit.
Thanks, everyone. Hi, Michael. Hi, everyone. Parul Jain. I am dialing in today from India, Delhi NCR. Sitting at my parents' house, just recovered out of COVID. Really excited to do this here today.
All right, sounds good. Today's session, we're going to talk about some of the hottest things that we've been having, getting data and talking to clients about over the past few weeks and months here. And Parul, you participated with me in creating and authoring and delivering some of the results from our 2022 key issues. So some of the data we're going to be sharing from that study. And also, you're going to bring in some of the data from your practice that you've been working on with your team to showcase some of the good things you're finding.
Absolutely. Really excited to talk about some of the stuff that we've been hearing a lot about, share some best practices. How are people thinking to strategize for the new year? How are they looking to solve for some of the challenges? We're obviously going to talk more about talent. That has been one of the burning issues in almost all the conversations we've had in the past 12 to 18 months. If it's about different facets of talent, how to acquire, how to retain them, how to train them, how to get more and more of talent, how to upskill, so on and so forth.
So go ahead and check in on the comment section there if you're coming in from around the world. But we're going to get into the data right now. And what I wanted to do is start out with kind of the macro picture. We wanted to bring in what is the most important issues and really start talking about the context of the business environment. So let's just start with that. This year is all about growth. And we ask clients, a proxy for growth, not necessarily revenue. That's a little bit harder for people to understand around the world, but understand the headcount that they're expecting in 2022. And as you can see, we've been asking this question for a number of years now, so you can kind of get a sense of kind of pre-COVID 2020, right in the middle, COVID 2021, and where we're at right now. So this data right here from 2022 is fresh. So you see the most optimistic view of the 3-year series here, and actually exceeding where we were pre-COVID across the board, not only just overall, but in Asia Pac, Europe, and North America, all showing very positive signs. So to me, that's an extremely optimistic view, and I think there's been some hesitation a little bit in the last few weeks around the Omicron variant, but even that, we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Pearl, talk to us about the challenges, though, that organizations are expecting in 2022.
Definitely. And we do this every year. We ask people what are the top challenges they expect to cause maximum disruption when they're strategizing for the new year. And this year, not surprisingly, talent shortage has been the top challenge keeping business leaders awake at night. And if you compare that through some of the previous years, it's just bumped up significantly from 5 to 1. Senior leaders are kind of not just solving or trying to solve for the gap between demand and supply of talent, but are also kind of worried about the cost of not having the right talent at the right time. And this talent challenge has manifested itself into multiple areas. So higher salaries, which is also showing up in actual rate increases. So most of the enterprise clients we've spoken to, they're reporting that their partners, their vendors, service providers are asking for wage hikes, mid-cycle revisions, especially for some of the new age niche roles. The other challenges around business models, work from home, regulations, etc. Seems like most of the people have sorted those issues out. They've figured that part of the puzzle, but are still struggling with the talent theme.
So if we kind of bring this in context, a lot of the talent, there's a lot of, you kind of get the end of the year prognostications for the upcoming year. And a lot of the conversation was these things were COVID related. There was the great resignation that we hear a lot about. We hear about, some of the changes in the political landscape around immigration and migration and things like that. Also the implications of COVID around changing attitudes and cultural views of actually work itself. And when we did the work from home, that allowed people to kind of expand their horizons in terms of reassessing their priorities in their home life. And Pearl, I know that as a working mom, you had that experience.
Definitely, definitely. It put our problem management and project management skills to a next level, right? You need to balance between your work, setting boundaries with your kid crying in the next room, at the same time finding those pocket power hours where you can just productively kind of push stuff. So I think everyone has had their own fair share of productivity increases and some lapses, etc. But everyone seems to have found their way around it. What works best for them, what definitely does not work for them. So
So
yeah.
definitely disruptive over the last year or so. We saw that in the expectations and in the hiring numbers there on the left. But let's talk about something that I would call something I kind of stumbled on into recently, and I didn't realize the 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 the, the other condition that was happening to our marketplace at the exact same time. And these are what we refer to as the population pyramids. And so when you look at the next slide here, what we've done is we've demonstrated um, three different geographies, and let's just start with North America and Europe and orientate what you're seeing here. So these are the slices of the current population. This is 2019, 2020 census data. So what you see here is in 5-year bands. So there's 216,000 100+ year olds in the North American and Europe markets. But if you go out to the 55 to 59, that's the biggest number on the page. 77 million folks are in that band, if you will, and that represents the baby boomers are retiring, and we've been hearing a lot about that. But these charts are kind of lovingly referred to as population pyramids, and what you're going to see there is, at least on the left, that's not a pyramid. And I was I knew that the baby boomers were going to retire. We've all been hearing about that for years, but what I did not realize was the extent of the decrease in the working age population that's going to be coming into the marketplace over the next few years. And if you do the math on that for Europe and compare the 25 to 29 band versus the 15 to 19-year-old band, what you're going to see is there's actually going to be 2.4 million less workers coming into the marketplace. And so all those other things we heard about COVID and legislation, right, around immigration and the COVID deaths, those were important parts of the equation here. But what's the immovable part of this equation here is that we have fewer babies that were born 20 years ago that are now coming in to become productive workers. Pearl, I know that India's got a slightly different situation. Talk to us about what you're experiencing there.
Yeah, unlike North America and Europe, India still has somewhat a pyramid, similar to a pyramid. And I think the real catch is that there is opportunity to kind of improve the overall workforce by enhancing the STEM education, more programs being announced. I think about a month or 2 months back, the government of India announced a Chips to Startup program, which kind of was aimed at boosting about 85,000 engineers on the semiconductor side. There are other initiatives planned as such. So such initiatives can obviously boost the education ratios, overall quality of the talent workforce. So the numbers will still be in favor. And then just to put one caveat out here, we're comparing a country to continents here. So definitely want to reinforce it is above the size, although the numbers might get lower, but they're still going to be quite huge. Now, purely looking at the base here, India's will be almost 2x. Africa is going to be 3x of what North America and Europe have offered. So definitely there is value in scale. We heard players saying, hey, maybe tier 1 cities are getting congested. So suggestion would be to maybe explore tier 2 or 3 cities, because definitely those are the pools where have been relatively untapped, still providing more meaningful opportunity there. In fact, let me throw in another perspective to make the population pyramid a bit more real. Right now, I think we have India, Africa here, and if you put China as well, right? All the three locations sit at approximately 1.3 to 1.4 billion people each. Fast forward this to 20 years, China is still sitting at 1.4 or roughly 1.42. India is about 12% higher. Africa is about 50% higher population base than China. So that's definitely startling. How do we look at the population gains, the talent situation here?
Yeah, so when I looked at these charts here, I started to realize, hey, the scale of what's going on in Africa is absolutely stunning. India's got some runway for the next 10 years where the population will continue, or new workers coming into the population will continue to expand by 1.8 million. But what you really look at and realize that, with 197 new babies born in Africa in the last 5 years, they're dwarfing every other part of the region, every other region in the world. And so from a talent standpoint, I put the comparison on there: 197 million new babies in Africa versus only 85 million in China, and so we're going to quickly see Africa exceed this, as you were indicating, going to exceed China's size, and then eventually India as well. But hasn't slowed down as much as China has, so that's there. But anyway, very good, healthy population pyramid, if you will. But even more importantly, the scale is something to take a look at. And what I'd leave here, my first visit to India was in about 2003. And right now, I would give you the overall impression. We'll talk a lot more about this as we go forward here. Africa is basically the same as where India was, with some caveats. There's some pluses and minuses to this analogy, where India was 20, 25 years ago. But the scale now is going to be incredible for Africa, and that's why we're trying to highlight it today. Okay, so let's move on to what do we think some of the solution options are. Pearl, we've broken this down between short-term and long-term. Why don't you give us your thoughts there, and we can kind of talk about that.
Definitely. Let's talk about the short-term options first, right? And both from an internal and external view. Now, if you look about internal aspects, one of the things we are seeing most organizations, sophisticated organizations, or what we call as pinnacle organizations, is they're realizing that, hey, loosening the purse strings will only get you so far. So you need to bust the budget. Also, bring about a mindset change that, hey, this is viewed as meaningful investments with defined outcomes, tangible ROIs, and all of these ROIs or outcomes are in the form of enhanced employee experience, customer experiencing. So essentially, you're pivoting the business case on a growth mindset and not per se on cost optimization. And the other way, the external view or the short term solution here is, can you look at deploying levers that are needed to be a better and a faster talent magnet that can make your organization a better talent magnet than your competitors? Can you think about developing employee value proposition to overcome the employee turnover costs? And then a couple of interesting examples that we're seeing in this space, right? One of the medical devices company, they've started offering uncapped flexible leaves. The other one's kind of offering reimbursements of in-house nanny to employees working from home. Lots of new flavors, examples coming in, which are not heard of, at least in the past, about a year back.
Yeah, and Pearl, one of the things I look at there, though, those short-term items are tending to focus on more a zero-sum game in terms of increasing or expanding the talent equation, or changing that talent equation. Hiring from your neighbor is great, but they're going to hire somebody else back from your team, and you're going to do it in kind of an increasing spiral of inflationary salaries, and so that's going to net out increasing cost perspectives. That is just going to be hard to manage from a business standpoint, and you're not really making progress in solving those until you start moving into some of these longer term solutions.
Definitely. And when you talk about longer term solutions, I think there are two more strategic approaches there, right? One, internally look at areas where you can reduce, optimize demand. When you say, essentially think about how innovatively you can look at leverage of robust technology. How can you bring in productivity? Rethink about process optimization there. Externally, think about, hey, can I diversify my supplier base? Can I look at new pools of talent? Can I hire from marginalized communities, as to what we call as impact sourcing? Expand your talent pool by actually thinking, hey, do I actually need a college degree for a certain job? Can I just maybe hire from community colleges? Gig workers are going to become an important part of the workforce strategy playbooks, in addition to contingent, outsourced, in-house employee pools. And then I think, yes, Mike, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, I would say, why don't we just start with, let's take a walk around or let's take a fly around of the world here and look at the different, kind of the 30,000 foot assessment, and then we'll drill down on a couple of these regions. But we'll start with the macro view of each of these regions on the next chart.
Sure, sure. I think when future proofing the delivery portfolio, what we advise our clients is to create your battle cards not just from a current talent market readiness standpoint, but also from a future potential standpoint. And when you look at this chart, going left to right, uh, you've got onshore and nearshore locations in dark blue. Uh,
Yeah, we need to move to the,
and
yeah, there we go. There we go. There we got the right chart up.
Perfect. So yeah, we've got onshore and nearshore European locations, marked in dark blue here. These are mature locations, have been dominating the services landscape. However, 20, 30 years from now, operating here is going to get challenging because of unfavorable population pyramids. People will have to think about how can I do with the limited talent pool, or can I just maybe look at different locations? And when I talk about different locations, here are the three options which we've highlighted in orange here. Look at LATAM. It's a favorable nearshore solution, especially for companies in the US and Canada. Same time zones, cultural similarities, relatively lower cost. I think one of the key drivers or reasons why companies have started pushing more on Latin America is because of the rising English proficiency, especially for the contact center industry. One interesting nugget: delivery of engineering and R&D services is actually quite experiencing significant growth here. We're seeing Brazil, Colombia, Costa Rica, fast-growing locations in this region. At the same time, there are challenges with some delivery enablers around internet connectivity, which has posed challenges for remote working, power stability, international connectivity, etc. Also concerns around, say, operating in business environment, ineffective judiciary, security concerns, IP protection. That's on LATAM. If you move to Asia Pacific, now Asia Pacific has kind of continues to lead the global services market. India and Philippines, they've been dominating the offshore landscape for quite a while now. India still continues to remain the most preferred location here. We're seeing enterprises looking at India to set up more niche work, say around AI, analytics, machine learning, etc. Philippines still growing, although witnessed a slight slowdown on the new center setup front, still growing on the headcount side. Now, within these locations, now tier one cities are kind of heating up. What companies have started to do is shift to tier two or three cities. Now, service providers have already been more vested on this side. So we had IBM launch their state-of-the-art design software labs in Kochi, Ahmedabad, also in Mysore. Even on the enterprise side, now we're seeing a lot of traction there. So we've got Vodafone, Bank of America in Ahmedabad, Allianz, EY in Trivandrum, Honeywell in Madurai, etc. So a lot of options still continue to persist because the talent pools are still favorable there. The numbers speak for themselves. The third option, Africa, now not as mature a market as APAC or Latin America, however, very high when it comes to just pure play raw talent availability. And it doesn't come to mind, as a preferred location for service delivery as of now, but we're seeing more interest in this area. I think this is driven from two reasons. One, companies are kind of looking at cost effective alternatives to the traditional locations like India, Philippines. Especially and second, after COVID, people are now starting to think about, hey, I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. I need risk diversification options. So that's triggering the thought process. Can I look at Africa? What other locations kind of fit the bill? Now, key thing to note: Africa in itself is a continent. There are multiple locations operating at different eras, different maturities. So, South Africa has been particularly strong for several years, especially on the CXM front. In North Africa, Egypt, and Morocco, they've experienced growth for IT, back office, language support for French and other EMEA languages. Up until now, I think in sub-Saharan Africa, outside of South Africa, the maturity is low, but that's still starting to change. I think recently we heard Back last year, we heard Twitter setting up their regional headquarters in Ghana. Google set up their Africa AI lab in Ghana. Microsoft invested about $100 million in Kenya, Nigeria. So a lot of activity happening in the region. Companies betting big. So that's starting to change, bringing in a mindset change here.
Yeah, and I think this is the devil's in the detail on this kind of exercise here. Over 50 countries in there, and with many with names I did not even recognize. I mean, they were just not familiar to me. So I started looking a little research in terms of population centers and the college graduates and stuff like that. We'll talk about that in just a second here. But I think on the right there, Pearl, you've got um, the top centers right now from a center perspective. Okay, and when I looked at Mauritius, okay, that's the fourth largest or not population, but country in terms of centers. But then I looked at the population of Mauritius, and it's only 1.4 million people and graduates of less than 10,000 per year. And I'm like, okay, well, that ain't going to have any sustainable long-term dent in the overall global talent pool. So, you got to really take a close look at the security situations, the demographics. It's more than just a cursory look at what happened in the last year. It's going to be really, what are you looking for in the next 5, 10, 20 years? That's going to make a difference. And that's why those population pyramids, you can get them breaking down by country, is really helpful. But then you got to get into a much more granular investigation to the market conditions that you would be building a business in. So
Absolutely.
let's move into the kind of some of the comparisons here, and we're not going to go. We don't have time to go into each region, but we have the data here. But what you've done here, Pearl, is to gather up some key statistics. So we're going to look at college graduates on this one and do the comparison, just to give everybody an idea of the scale here.
Absolutely. So if you're just talking about annual college graduates here, continues to be the largest reservoir of talent globally. Next, you've got US, Africa, Central Eastern Europe. Of these locations, I think while population pyramids continue to if you fast forward 10, 15 years, Africa is the only location with most favorable population pyramid, right? Within Africa, there are large chunks of graduates coming from Nigeria, Egypt, South Africa. At the same time, while we're talking about the large pools, I think there are some interesting caveats, important caveats that need to be put out. That yes, there is raw talent available. However, companies will have to invest in growing and developing that talent, building an entire recruitment engine from the ground up, etc. Those are the trade-offs that come in hand and need to be kept in mind. The second point, definitely, I'd want to put in is around the business environment. In comparison to some of the nearshore European locations, the quality of infrastructure, digital readiness, there's still some concerns around, especially in East and West African countries. Uh,
So let me, but one
and
comment here on college graduates. So I think India had an advantage over Africa in general, not specific countries, but if you look at it as a continent. Um, but one of the advantages that India is going to have, I'm sorry, Africa is going to have today over India 20 to 25 years ago, is the fact that technology enablement is so much better today than it was back when India kind of started ramping up their services capabilities. And I still remember the time when I built my first center there. We spent more money on the telecom costs than we actually did on the staffing salaries. And so I think you won't have that same issue in Africa. It's going to be a very different equation. The bandwidth is going to be much better. The technology facilitation is going to be at it's going to be much more developed across the globe in general, but it's going to have a faster acceleration to the adoption of, or the feasibility of Africa from that perspective. But college graduates is something that's going to have to be part of the equation that needs to change. So when you look at some of those ratios, Africa had a long ways to go in terms of having the same level of capability there, even though the raw counts aren't bad. But when they up their education level at the same time they have those populations coming on board to become workers, it's going to be an incredible set of circumstances there that are going to look at. Let's look at the next chart here, and let's look at the almighty dollar view and give us a perspective on what you see here. And I know this is a constantly moving target here, especially in on the Western world where inflation is kind of taking off here. But give us a current view right now.
Definitely. So this is just to put things in perspective. These numbers we're looking at, these are annual operating costs. Annual operating cost including both people's salaries, non-people costs, so what you would likely incur on a steady state basis. And think about if you take US, the likes of Dallas or Houston as a baseline here, India still continues to offer about 80-85% kind of cost arbitrage there. Philippines slightly lower, 80-83%. Africa, as we're talking about, and the cost here are representative of South Africa. Locations like Egypt, Kenya, Ghana, etc., would have lower costs. There's still very meaningful cost arbitrage here as well. Uh, yes, the salary costs are going to be low. However, as Michael said, tech costs are going to be high. Also, I think within the continent, different countries are going to have different time investments in terms of setting up the business, how many days you need to get the simple permits, licenses, etc. So all of that considered, the costs are going to vary, but still, it's going to be a very sizable opportunity here.
Okay, all right. So let's kind of net all this out here. Obviously, Pearl can take you down into a lot more detail. They have spreadsheets and drill downs and entire reports on each of those different countries that they can help you explore. But let's summarize this. The first thing is, how do we deal with the most immediate crisis right now? And obviously, stealing from your neighbor is always a good thought. If you can afford the budget, go steal from your neighbor. But I'm not optimistic that's the long-term solution for us as a business community. But one of the things that is going to be to really focus on how technology can reduce the talent demand. So if you can make your existing workforce more productive, that's where you need to start first. You need to do it for two reasons. One is use the technology to drive more, get rid of the most labor-intensive things and make the existing workforce capable of handling more growth. But also, you need to be thinking about how to improve your retention by improving the employee experience. I think that's going to be incredibly important here. My sense is that the customer experience has been what we focused on for the last several years, and you saw in that very first chart there that we had that now the employee is going to be probably even more important than the customer experience. And I can give you a couple just real anecdotal examples here of what we're seeing in our own day-to-day lives. When you go to the supermarket, it's now a self-service experience. They've moved the employees out and it said, "Hey, Mr. Customer, we want you to bag your own groceries." I'm starting to see reduction in store hours. And this is not just COVID. This is going to be something that's going to be permanent. You see reduction in that. Call centers, you're hearing about increased wait times, things like that. So they are going to worry about how do I focus less on the customer experience and focus more on the employee experience. Now, our next comment here, and I think this is important for you to hear. We used the hook of consider Africa, but our most immediate recommendation is going to be focused on a double down on India for the next 3 to 5 years.
And that's going to be driven by two reasons, right? One, the most common pools of talent right now, North America and Europe, both are going to struggle with declining pools of talent in a longer term. I think people there, organizations need to change their mindset and focus on skill first hiring to drive growth there, right? Essentially, degrees do not matter. Look at newer pools of talent, maybe introduce re-entry programs for people who've left. But within India right now, there's huge scale, there's huge opportunity even right now. Tier 1 cities already kind of lots of investments happening both from the service providers, from the enterprises, GBSs, etc. We've got the likes of TCS, Infosys, etc. announcing about 40,000, 24,000 hiring just in a single year. And I think why I'm repeating tier 2 3 cities again is because I think post COVID, pandemic, remote working, they've opened a lot of opportunities there. Hybrid work environments have kind of enabled people to work from their own cities. So that's kind of opened up options there. And the third part about, then we move on to Africa. Michael, you wanted to add some special comments there.
Yeah. And before we leave, the comment about North America and Europe, it's not COVID, guys. I mean, I know there's lots of headlines around that, and it's not just focused on high-end digital talent or IT workers. This is going to be everything in the economy. And so this is truck drivers, this is retail, this is restaurants, this is customer service. I mean, this is going to impact everybody when the pool is shrinking. it's going to be something we've never experienced in any of our lifetimes. Okay, so pay close attention to that. We do think Africa has potential, and it's, especially in the 10 to 20 year range. That is going to be where the growth of the world is going to happen. It's where the opportunity to access to global talent, and for larger companies right now, I think, especially those that are trying to think about business opportunities, it makes sense to go now. Okay, if you're a service provider and you're providing talent for the rest of the world, you need to be looking at it now. In fact, we've had conversations recently. We're saying, okay, so what do we need to do to get started? What do we need to do to learn? What do we need to build our business, and do that in not only from a revenue standpoint, but also from a servicing standpoint, and look to scale that over the next 4 to 6 years. If you're a smaller and mid-sized company, it probably doesn't make sense right now. You don't need to be the explorer if you just need a relatively small center, and you don't have any business there, and you want to be do you really want to be on the forefront? Probably not. So get there via other service providers, impact sourcing specialists. There are people out there that are focused on this, and they'd be happy to get you started, have you create that awareness in your organization, learn, watch, wait, all those things that are necessary. That what we're saying, we're giving the wake-up call today. It says Africa is coming, and just like all the naysayers said about India about 25 years ago, I can remember conversations back then. Won't work. They don't understand our business. It's too far away. It's not enough cost savings. I heard all those excuses 25 years ago about India. And some of my conversations, I'm actually hearing the same exact storylines of excuses about Africa. But I can assure you, the things that matter the most are, raw talent pyramids are going to be the extremely important things to consider.
Right, Michael. I think trendsetters would still need more proof points, and happy to kind of support in those conversations there. But I would want to reinforce the point around, hey, if you're a small and mid-sized company, you maybe don't need to reinvent the entire wheel. You can learn how others are doing it and go via others. So definitely that's there. We also have a couple of questions here. One of them being, hey, what are the top 3 issues limiting the potential for GPS sector to scale in Africa? I think, in my view, and Michael, feel free to add here, the 3 challenges, in my view, would be: one, hey, please be ready to, invest in developing the talent locally. Because of the low talent availability right now, you're going to have to invest, especially for the media, mid to senior tenure kind of roles. Second, you're going to have to be aware of that, hey, the delivery environment, that ecosystem is not as robust or ready as compared to, say, some of the other peer locations in nearshore Europe or APAC. So there are going to be some limitations around, hey, utilities, connectivity with airports, etc. So all of those things need to be kept in mind while you're planning your scaling up plans there. Yeah.
Okay. And I think, from my perspective, I think it's going to be the lack of education about what the potential is. I think there's going to be a lot of naysayers out there, just like there was for India, and the issues will be slightly different. But those that venture out into to at least exploring the opportunities and putting it on the radar, I think that's an absolute necessity today. And then look at it in the context of where your specific business situation is, and then you have to make your own decisions about, is it today, is it tomorrow, is it somebody else's problem, and who takes my chair down the road. So with that, I want to offer up an executive brief. It has a couple of the same slides here, but it also has some of those thumbnails we had up to the right with more detail in it. So Pearl and myself and a couple from the team and Morgan working on that. So we're going to offer that up if you're interested in receiving that. I think it's coming out of editing today, and will be available to those that sign up for it here. No strings attached to that. Just click the link there. I believe it is in the chat somewhere. And so if you're interested in that, feel free to click that link. And Pearl, I wanted to thank you for your time today. And this is our first venture into this new format. And I hope others will give us some feedback. And if there's anything else, let me know.
Thank you so much, Michael, for having me here. Great having conversation today.
All right, let's keep the conversation going.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.